Hello everyone. This is going to be a second video for the React game compare app tutorial. So basically, now we have the next button here. Also, when we click the next button, then we will see the object what's been clicked. Now we need to put the logic behind what we really need to do when we click the next button, right? So let's do this. We have the compare index already. It's comparing, and it's also the compare index, the current index and compare index, which is giving me a 0 and 1. So I'm seeing the two of this. So when you go to the like, then it has to go to the next one, as I mentioned. So the compare, the current index should be the 0 again, and the compare index should be the 2. 2 because this is a 1 and it's supposed to be a 2. So for that one, let's write some little logic here. So let's write the if the compare index is greater than 0 and the compare index is lesser than equal to games data dot length minus 2, then we will set the compare index. The compare of this index is equal to d plus 1. So basically, when the compare index is 0 greater than 0 and compare is less than this guy game.length, then we will set the compare index to increase by 1. So every time it goes to the increase by 1, right? Because every time, uh, hold on, where is the data here? So every time when this guy is comparing to this guy, now is this guy, now the second compare data is 2 and current index is 1. So compare index supposed to be go to the 3, and we need to validate that it's supposed to be inside this 2. So compare index is 0 than 1, and if the game data length is length minus 2, which is going to be this, and then it's going to be increased by d plus 1. And if we do a current index, and if it's not true, then the current index is supposed to increase by 1. If this is not valid, then this guy should go to the second one, right? This guy to the second one, and also the compare index and compare index, and it will check the current index is increased by 2. So this is a logic. So let's see if it really works or not. So now if I go to the GTA, oh, it doesn't, it click it, but it doesn't, it set this data, but the compare doesn't even load at all. So what we'll need to do in this one is on use effect, when this current index is changed or the compare index is changed, then we need to trigger this compare so we can get this the current and compare index right here. So if I go to GTA next, then it goes to the next one, which is a PUBG. So if I go to GTA to next, then if I go to the Fortnite here. So now if I go to the next, then it goes to the COD, and COD is compared with the PUBG. If I go next, then COD is compared with the Fortnite. Now if I go next, then PUBG should compare with the Fortnite. So PUBG should compare with Fortnite. Now it in the data here. So now the it's already in the data. So now we need to store this everything of this comparing what we did the comparing logic here. We need to store it in some of these the collection so we can get that data later on, right? So basically I'm gonna go again here. So the if the compare index, which is second index, so we have two index here, the current and the compare. So current is basically the first one, and compare is the second one. So if the second one is greater than 0, if second one is greater than length than games length than 2, because we need to validate it has to be minus 2, because it's when it's reached the 4, it's not going to do anything. So it's supposed to be between these two. So after that, we can set this compare index. But if this condition is not met, then the current index we need to increase. So this guy need to increase to 2, this one, and we also need to increase this the index, and this need to compare with this guy, right? So that was the logic which I used. There was, I think there is different ways to do it too, but this is what I used. So now let's go to the I did a compare. Now I need to store the KPI data. So every time when I click it here, it does work, but we don't have to. We need to store the data somewhere so we can fetch the data and show it in the screen. How many times we click and what stuff are like. So let's build some KPI ref here. So I will use a ref here. Ref is a very useful to get the also the element from HTML, and also to store the temporary data on the on component. So I'll create something called KPI ref, right? So once I have this, I will create another called use state, and this basically going to be a KPI. KPI this is going to be basically a data here, nothing else. So this is going to be the error. Okay. So now we have the user. I'm using a user ref, so I need to import this in the React application on top here. So once I have this, then this is okay. So now this is fine. So now what happened is when we compare it here, the first thing we also need to check the if the current index is equal current index is equal to games.length -1, then we need to return set games is empty. Oh, I forgot to do this. Basically, when the current index is reaching it at the limit of this game, which is reaching at the end, then we need to set this to 0, right? We need to set this game to the 0. So this is just checking the validations here. So now, so when we click on the next, now we need to store our data data here. So what happened is I'm gonna create the KPI ref here. On KPI ref, on the reference, we always get a current, and current we can add the value here. So on this one, basically it's an array here, which I give a filter empty array. So I'm going to do a filter here. So on this filter, I'm gonna is a JavaScript filter, array filter. So I'm getting the element, and I'm also getting the index, and I'm checking the if there is any element for the ID is equal to the game which I get from the click button, the ID, then I'm going to return a new object here. So I'm going to return a brand new object here, and I'm going to set with the ID, and this object going to any doesn't this object going to be doesn't have any name here. So it's going to be you know what, I'm going to D. I think it's easier to write it down D. So I'll put D dot value and D dot value, and I'm also sending the index. Okay. So okay, so we don't have any value on the array, but I'm going to put that in array. But this KPI ref current array will only filter if it has data. If it doesn't have the data, then it doesn't even fill. So if it has a data here, and if it's math, then we're going to return this data, and it's going to be array. So I'm going to return as the first of these. So if it's found, then we're going to return, and we'll say, okay, we found in this array. But for the first time when it run, it doesn't have any data, so this found will be negative. So what I say that if the found is negative, then we're going to store our new data here, and that's going to store on this exactly this KPI ref array, and I'm going to store that new object here, and this object going to be a ID, and d dot id. D is the type we from the next where we get from, which is top here. So d dot id dot name, d dot name, and the value. Now we're giving a new object with the value with the 1. So if it's not found, then we'll just say the value is 1. All right, because anyhow he click it, If the user click it, then we know that we need to store that one click data somewhere. But if it's found, then we need to increase this data by one, right? By one. But we need to first to increase by one. We need to find which of this array has this object is sitting on. So for that one, we need to find it out. So I'll use something called map, and on this map, if md.id is equal to md.id is equal to found.id, then we will set the md.id to new object, right? And new object going to be a found.id, and it's going to be a found or md, doesn't even matter. And name also, it doesn't even matter, it's going to found or id, it's going to be same because it's matching it, but the value is going to be a little different because if we found it, now we need to increase by one. So once I increase by one, I can return this md, and this going to be a constant, a new array, new KPI ref, and I'm gonna set this new KPI ref to this current ref. All right. So I'm seeing error here on line number 39. There is an error in the game. So where's the line number 39 here? Okay, there's an error. So I'll just put this D. So now, okay. So now we didn't see anything here. Let me see what's the issue. If the current index, which is 0, is equal to game minus 1, and then set game is equal to 0. And the game dot length is those are supposed to be 1 at first time. So is this? It isn't supposed to be. It is. How? Of the current dot, how the game dot length is amount. Let me check. All right. How this is equal? If the game dot length is minus 1 is equal to current index, how is that even possible? Let me double check it here one more time. If 0 is equal to, okay. Okay, so I think the current index is 0 at first time. Right. That's right. That's right. But how the game dot length is equal to 0? This isn't supposed to be game. Yeah, of course, game dot length is 0 as well. It's supposed to be a game dot data dot length. Okay, right. If a game dot data dot length is 0, and if it's 0, then if there is no data on this game, then we will set it to 0. But it always have a data here, so we don't even need this. Right. So now I already have this keep dot current here. So once I have this, so let's see the data here. What I'm getting and keep that current. All right. JSON dot stringify. Okay. Now I'm seeing the data. If I really click it here, if I click GTA, now GTA 1 is here. If I click GTA is increased. Click GTA, it increased by 2. COD, it will create a new object with a COD. COD has a 2 now. Now it will create a PUBG and the survey in here. So now I have all the data, which is perfect, which I really want. COD, I click the PUBG, GTA, PUBG, Fortnite. Now I have all the data here. But I click the PUBG 3, I click the GTA 1, and just click. Now I need to make this as order and put it on a list. That's all is left. So now once I have this data here, uh, now I can sort it first. Sort the KPI and the KPI ref that current dot. Is this a KP? Is I wrote KP. It's okay. KP dot current dot sort. So now I need to sort it, and I'm using a JavaScript to sort here. There are different ways to do a sort as well, but this is the one way to do a sort function. So I'm sorting by the value. So if the value of the A is greater than the B dot value, then it's going to return the 1. And if it's not, then it's going to return the -1. So now this will give me a sort array, and I'm also putting directly here the ref kp ref current, but I also created one more state here called kpi, so I can set this variable on the set as well. So if I put the set here, and if I put this here sort here, so now the instead of using the kpi current here, I can use directly a kpi, which I have set it here. So if I use this, and once it reload, I can click it, and now it will show me the data here. But what really happened is it doesn't sort it now. No, it sorted well with the values. So value 1, 2, 3, but we need to go in a reverse order. We need to go in descending. So basically, this sort KPI is an array. So in an array, we could directly do a reverse. So once we do a reverse, now we will see in the reverse here KPI. So at the end, when this survey is end, so what we can do is when this survey is end here, so how we know the survey is end, right? How we know the survey is end? This games, if the survey is length is 1, but if it's ending the game, if everything is done, then we will get the games is equal to 0. So that means if the game's length is equal to 0, that means survey is ending. So here the survey end. If we're using an XCO or something, then it might not work because it will take a little time to async call. But when using XCO, we're getting directly data from the uh, so it will work. So now if I do this, now we will see SDF at the end. So this is the survey end here, right? So now we will put in the list here. So basically there's going to be a KPI which we built, and we just need to loop it, this guy. That's all left now. So once it's looped, then I will put that in the list here. I need to create a UI as well. So I'll give a name here. So it's going to be a list group bootstrap item, and this is going to be the name. No, I think I should put the name and the value of this. And I also need to put the key here, otherwise it's gonna complain. Key.id, and this is okay. So I need to put this on the inside the ul element, and this is going to be a and this is going to be a class name, and class name going to be a list dot group, group. All right, so now let's finish this and let's do a survey. So I like GTA, PUBG, GTA for now. I like everything. Now it give me a GTA 5 2, COD 2, PUBG 2, and I also need to create a button where I can redo this guy again. So I'll create another button here. So on here, I need to set the compare index to 1, and set the current index, which is the first one, is 0. And I also need to set the KPI ref dot current is equal to empty. So once I do this, now it's gonna reset everything, and I can redo this survey again. Put everything, do it again. Put everything, do it again. If I click it here, it goes to 3 to 1. 3 to 1. If I go here, it also give me a 3 to 1. Of course. So now if I click it here, here, so now it give me a 2, 2, 2, 1, and 1. And I can make this little better here for a UI. It looks like the UI has some missing, but yeah, that's all for this video, guys. I hope you guys like it. And this is a really I thought this was going to be really quick, but it's going to be two videos of series. And I hope you guys like it. And please do subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.